Hey, how's it going, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good day. Welcome to the Narrative Mindset Podcast. Um, well, an update. Go to orientation today, and that's a good thing. And go there like at 1:30, and uh kind of get that done, and I'll more than likely start tomorrow. Uh, and just to be clear, I actually got a couple more calls. I got a call from, Amazon Flex. I got a call from, uh, what was it? A railroad company, and, I got a call from somebody else too. I forget who that was, but, basically, I got a couple calls from quite a few people, um, but, I'm going with Amazon Flex. I mean, not Amazon Flex, Amazon DSP, which is I'm assuming it's part of Amazon Flex or something like that. Um, and then we'll kind of see. Uh, the way I look at it is, compared to what's out there, compared to the options and everything, Amazon DSP is not a bad job. It doesn't. You just have to focus, really. And just get everything else off your mind, so your mind is on the road and everything. What you should be. And also, uh, I went and got another. I'm trying out another plugin also, that you'll hear in this particular episode. I think it's called Sonable Prime Vocal. Um, because I've been looking for a plugin that was like like an all-in plugin, that I can upload my episode in, and it does the EQ, the de-essing, the noise reduction, all of that kind of stuff. And right now, the winner is Prime Vocal. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sure how to work on any podcast episode, but for mine, it adds it kind of makes it goes from kind of amateur to professional. It takes the the episode, and it takes all of that stuff that's around the edges of the voice, the noise reduction, yada yada yada, and it does a pretty good job, from what I can see so far. And I mean, they want I think they want $99 for it. I mean, from what I can see right now, I mean that's well worth it. I'm so tired of this whole rat race of plugins. Where everybody's got plug-in after plug-in after plug-in, and most of them don't even do, you know, what what people want them to do. And my situation might be a little bit different because I have a somewhat DIY treated booth. So it's a little bit different than somebody recording in their bedroom, with with the walls and all that kind of stuff. And which, by the way, I am in my bedroom. It's a 4x4 booth, and it's right kind of in the corner. It's one of those portable booths. You've probably seen them online, uh, Amazon, stuff like that. And I mean, it's a pretty good deal, but I had to get the foam inside, because without the foam, it's okay. It's okay. The only thing that the only thing that I probably will more than likely upgrade in here is I may get rid of my I may get rid of my desk in here because if I move my desk, then I have more room to to scoot in a little bit more. So then my door is all the way, closed against the it's all the way closed against the front because I made that was DIY. Like I said, I took a moving blanket and I glued uh acoustic foam to it, and then I just hung it from the door with zip ties, and it kind of drapes back. You know, Once I pull it back when I go in here, and then when I scoot my chair up, then it just m- drapes right up against the door. So, uh, it's a DIY thing, and we all do different things as far as DIY is concerned. But I mean, it seems like it's a good uh, seems like it's a good deal. Definitely seems like it's a good deal. So, um, but besides that, um, not too much else has been going on. I mean, all I can say is, hey, well, what a vacation. What a vacation. Like, it's I guess it's the vacation you really don't want, you know. I mean, you really don't have a choice, but I'm glad that I'm able to to do it the way I can do it. And I keep saying that because I want to encourage people, to get prepared so you don't have to so you're not stuck in one position because I see so many people that are, they get a job and they get a bunch of stuff at the job, and now, they got a car payment, they got a house payment, they got this other payment, and they're heavily dependent on that job and the paycheck, and something happens, and then they're nervous about, I don't want to lose my job, but I need my next check. I need this, and it's because they didn't do it, or circumstances prevented them from doing it because they were in a worse situation before they got the job. So I mean, you have to make a way to figure that stuff out, and it requires self discipline, because it's all fun and games. Everybody's your friend, until you're in that situation. Now, everybody's busy. Let me call you back, yada, yada, yada. And I'm not saying that people have to deal with you while you're in that situation. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you want to be around the people who are there, whether you're doing good or bad. Whether you in that situation or whether you just got a brand new job, they're the same exact person. I was thinking about that. I think I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, man, well, one thing that really burns me up, and I've been around people like this almost my whole life. One thing that burns me up about people is that I hate people that are people that are different around certain people. If you take a regular person, right, and we go around somebody famous, most of them, their whole demeanor is going to change. If you take them and you go around, I call them real dudes. Them real dudes that you already know is about that life. Then that person's attitude is their demeanor is going to change. But I am the kind of person where, no matter who I'm around, I'm still the same person, still love to laugh, joke, you know, stuff like that. But other people, they're it's like when you're not around other people, then, they're laughy, jokey, we hanging out. And then once you get around somebody else, then all of a sudden you're looking at them like, okay, now you kind of snappy, kind of, attitude-ish, stuff like that. We were just joking around yesterday, and now, you all of a sudden you just, stone cold, you know, killer. Like, dude, I hate being around people like that. And also, I had to make a realization that I had to stop helping people. Because I'm the type of person that you can talk to, and you can ask me a question, and if I know, I'll just talk until you tell me to shut up. Because I'm trying to help you and lay out the situation for you. Me thinking in my mind that you're going to take that information and take it and do the same thing that I would do. Make a mental list, go home, check it out, follow the list, and keep it moving, and you know contact me, you know only if it's an emergency situation where you just can't figure it out. But I keep running into people that are like, they want to ask you a question. Hey, can you let me know about this? Why would you do this? Oh, how you do this? And how you do this? And how do you do this? And how do you do this? It's like it's grown men that want you to hold their hand, and it's like they want you to, every question, you know, y- I had one guy that I used to work with, and he asked me about, uh, rideshare. So I was telling him or whatever, and the guy, number one, he called me on three-way. That was why I quit talking to the dude. Called me, I was on three-way. So not only are you taking advantage, but now you went and got other people that you expect me to babysit for free. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing this. And he called me one time and was like, the dude was just, I think the dude is lazy, because he called me one time and he was like, well, you know, um, he wanted me, I was thinking what he was getting around to is he wanted me to tell him, you know, what exact time to get out there, because he said, well, man, I don't want to get out there when it's slow. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you want me to do? To call you and tell you when it's fast out? Hey, man, you might want to get out as fast. All right, now it's about to slow down, give you, turn by turn directions as to when it's fast and when it's slow. You know, Not to mention, I'm holding your hand and babysitting you through the process already. Willingly, of course, but it's like you get a realization of, like, dude, you need to stand up on your own 2 feet. No wonder, no wonder in this day and age, women look at men like they don't have any respect for us because we as men we've turned into like gossipers. We turned into what women used to be. No offense, but we turned into what women used to be. Now men are the ones, standing in groups talking about another dude. Like, what? I wish I would. You know, I'm to the point now. Let me be clear before I go down that lane. Let me be clear. Once you do the work on yourself, then you disassociate yourself from all of that drama, and that's what creates your peace. You know, and why not? Let's go through it real quick. Let's go through my process, and I'll try to be quick about this. And when I say this, I'm not saying that this is in stone. I'm just saying that this is what I did as far as my process is concerned. So, first, you want to figure out a definition of love. You want to figure out a definition of love that works for that works for this situation. That if you start to question the process, then you can say, okay, this is love, so you can apply it and it makes sense. So, my definition of love is stuff you don't want to do. If I got, a wife, whatever, it's had a snowstorm last night. Do I want to go outside and sweep all the snow off her car and we both got to be to work, at the same time? Absolutely not. But I do it because I love her. I don't want her out there. I don't want her to slip and fall. I want her car to be warm when she gets in it. Yada yada yada. Plain and simple. When your kids are acting up, do you want to get off work when you're on your last point and you don't know if you're going to get fired, you got rent due, all this kind of stuff because they don't know how to act in school? Absolutely not. But you do it. Why? Because you love them. That's love. Stuff you don't want to do. Not stuff you should think about, but well, you know what? It is stuff you should think about. But love is stuff you don't want to do. But okay. Now we know love is stuff you don't want to do. Next is you want to be in love. You want to love yourself first. You want to be in love with yourself. Sounds kind of weird, but let me finish. Being in love is real simple. Being in love is really making that priority, making that feeling or action, doing something you don't want to do, you're doing it anyways, and making it a priority. That's the difference between love and being in love. Okay? Next, you want to love yourself and you want to be in love with yourself first. And who cares about it? Who's offended by it? Trying to pull you away from it or telling you shouldn't do it? Get away from those people. Because those people haven't done the work on themselves. It's number one. That's what you need to remember. Those love and in love. Next, you want to figure out if you're content in life. Because this is what's going to affect other people that you're around. And my analogy of being content is, okay, say, you're a woman, you got two guys, we're climbing a mountain with ledges, right? There's a safety rope, right? So we're climbing and, you're going a little bit faster than us. So you get to a point to where one of us is a little bit past the safety rope. One of us, we're still getting up. We haven't made it to the ledge yet. The other one, he's climbing and got a little bit of that safety rope. He's past it a little bit, right? You start to slip. Which guy are you going to fall towards? The one that has access to the safety rope or the one that hasn't made it to the ledge yet? Probably the one that's got access to the safety rope. And it's a little bit, he's a little bit past the ledge. And the ledge is a representation of a spot that you've made it to that is not your ultimate goal, but it's a spot where you can relax. The safety rope represents something that he has to fall back on. So it's not like you jumping on him and all he got is his rope. He's got some extra there. And that's where you want to be in life. You want to be at a point to where, you want to be at a point where you're happy. You haven't made it to where you want to get to, but you're content with the point where you're at. And it's real important because if you're not at that point, then it will affect other people that you're around. And you'll start to get jealous of the other people that you're around because you'll feel like they're not helping you or they're, that they think they're better than you or whatever. And it's really not that. It's just the fact that you're not happy with your place in life. It's okay. None of us have made it to where we want to get to. But the fact is to be content at a certain spot and be okay right there. You haven't quit yet. On you're still working on getting to your goal. But at that particular point, you're happy in that position and you're functioning in that position. So that's the next one. So we got love yourself, be content. Next, find your happiness. I remember Will Smith said it, allegedly, got to add that in there. Will Smith said that nobody else is responsible for your happiness but you. And I really didn't understand it when he said it. Uh, I don't know. It didn't really make sense. And also something about science too. I totally agree with him. But as far as your happiness is concerned, you need to find something that you like to do, regardless of the way everybody feels. This is something that you like to do. And you have to be intentional about all of this stuff. And you have to find something that you like to do, and it has to be to a point to where, you know, you say something once, and if a person doesn't follow the rules, then they almost get cussed out because, look, I told you, this is what I like doing. Do you like it? I don't care. Do you want me to not do it as much? I don't really care. This is what I like doing, and that's what we need to come to an agreement on. And usually, another person, if they're also happy, then you two will get along fine because they feel the same way. They have something that they like doing. So therefore, they're not focused on what you're doing to make you happy. They're looking at you like, okay, I'm finna do what I'm doing. You gonna do you. I'll talk to you later. So that's happiness. So we've got through loving yourself. We've got through being content. We got through being happy. Okay, now we're at peacefulness. Peacefulness is basically anything that's not my business, I don't have anything to do with. I'm not making money off of it. It didn't happen in my house, didn't happen in my car. It wasn't my, private parts. Child ain't mine, etc. It ain't my business. Most people ruin their own peacefulness because they're constantly worried about what everybody else is doing. What's your average, what's your average person's conversation? Average person's conversation is all about somebody else's business. Whole conversation. What she's doing, what she said, how she acted, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, once you wipe out all that stuff, then, your life actually feels really, really content because at this point, now you're like, it's like this almost bliss because you no longer have those people feeding you other people's information and ruining your peace. Because to me, that's what peace is all about. Peace is all about, peace is all about just being happy in your own space, worrying about you. I have to even think about that because I'm always thinking about other people and what they did to me and and how they acted and all this kind of stuff. I struggle with not thinking about that stuff. I'll think about it and I'll be, pissed off in my own head. I ain't seen these people in years. So that is something that I need to work on, but I don't let it affect anything else. So we got loving yourself, content, happiness, and peacefulness. And that's pretty much doing the work on yourself. So once you adopt this particular method, and you may get down the road and you may say, um, anytime we all have stuff that we don't want to do, right? So anytime you get down the road, you say, well, anytime you utter those words, well, I don't really want to. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, stop going to McDonald's. I don't want to, exercise today. I don't want to do this. Remember, I said love is stuff you don't want to do. So if you love yourself, then you do it. If you love the person, then you do it. Simple as that. And that's why I said you have to have a definition of love that you can apply to this whole thing, because down the road, you're going to question it. You're going to say, well, he know what he was talking about. That don't make sense. I mean, he was talking about, well, if you love yourself, it's stuff you don't want to do. I don't really want to go to the gym. Stop right there. Are you going to go or not? Don't want to go to the gym today because you're tired. But hey, if I love myself, I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to go anyways. So now that means you love yourself enough to say, okay, let me go to the gym. Let me do a little exercise, even though I don't want to, but I'm doing this because I love myself. Let me change my diet or whatever so I can get healthier. I don't really want to do it, but I'm doing it because I love myself. Let me, you know, let me stop dealing with certain people because as part of my process, my peace, this is what protects that. And that's what it's all about. Because in the end, you're the person that matters, not everybody else. You're responsible for your own. You're responsible for your own peace, your own existence. You came in this world alone, just you. And that's the exact way that you're going to leave. Hate to say it like that, but it's true. You're not going to have they don't have, caskets with passenger seats. So you just have to kind of remember that. And if they're over 21, they're responsible for their own life. It's not your job to worry about somebody else. you know. But hey, that's